It's episode 69 of Red versus Blue. My name is Mike Stark.
And I'm Keith Curry.
And we are back. Lots going on since we left. Let's get into it. First of all, we left because you left the country. You took some notes to yourself about contact with people during your travels about our political situation, right?
Well, I did. I was in French Polynesia, and these discussions actually took place in the hot tub on deck. But a couple of things I would observe. Number one, Canada is still pissed about the whole 51st state thing. And a lot of Canadians are no longer traveling to the United States. That's been noticed here in Newport Beach, but it's really being noticed in Phoenix and Florida and Palm Springs, and particularly in Las Vegas, where tourism is way down because Canadians are not traveling to the U.S. 49 flights have been canceled between the two countries.
Wow.
The other thing we learned is that in talking to a recently retired National Guard officer, and I won't say from which state because of where things are today, but the National Guard has actually gamed out what to do if they get an illegal order or an order to occupy a city or to do things that they believe are outside of the legal purview of the National Guard to do it. Our Guard units in the various states have actually gone through an exercise to think about, or at least some of them have, an exercise about what to do if they're given orders that appear to violate the Constitution and the law. And I thought that was encouraging. The other thing is that l'affaire Epstein was prominently featured on French television and broadcast on the big screen in the breakfast room in French Polynesia. So it is a worldwide story in multiple languages.
All right, let's move on. The big news this week was the Tennessee election. And, of course, the Republicans are spinning this as, oh, well, no, the liberal nut got beat bad. But that's not the case, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it was a 9-point win, so it's hard to say it was close. But the previous Republican incumbent won that seat with the 22% margin. Trump carried it by plus 20 or 30 points. So there was a substantial erosion in the Republican vote. It should be noted that the Democratic candidate, Afton Ben, was perhaps the worst Democratic candidate for that district that could have possibly been nominated. She said she hates prayer in the city that is the headquarters of the Southern Baptist Convention. She hates country music. She hates Nashville. She hates the pedal bike bars that are frequent in downtown Nashville and the bachelorette parties, which are typically the people on the pedal bike bars. And she hates it all. And that's a critical part of the economy there. But nonetheless, she came within 9 points, which was much closer than a candidate of that ilk should have done. One Democratic analyst has projected that if the Republican drop-off vote is the same nationally as it was in Tennessee 7, that the Democrats will have a total of 250 seats. Now, it won't be because every state's different and every candidates are different and the voter behavior is different, but it does portend a strong showing by the Democrats in the next election.
I want to go back to the statements the Democratic candidate said about Nashville. And I think that if you talk to most Nashville residents, they will agree with pretty much everything she said about downtown Nashville.
Well, I will say this, Mike. She did carry Davidson County, where Nashville is. So maybe that's true.
Yeah, this is not a new thing either. When I visited Nashville a few times, I've got friends that live down there, and they basically never go to downtown Nashville because of those reasons that she cited. But it's still not good for a candidate who's running in Nashville to say those things, right?
Yeah, it didn't help. Didn't help.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to Pete. Tell me about Pete and what's up with Pete these days.
Well, Pete is in hot water. You know, we had a hearing yesterday with the Admiral, and it looks like the Admiral walked the plank for him and basically gave him enough cover where he's not going to be charged, where he, Hegseth, will not be charged with a war crime. But that could not assuage the finding from the Inspector General on Signalgate that he indeed leaked classified material. And of course, Hegseth says, I can declassify it by thinking about it. So I had already declassified the time and date of the bombing where we were bombing in Africa. So that really looked bad at him. And then there was a report. Here's the problem that Trump has is, in addition to rampant incompetency within the administration, people are now fighting among themselves. And so the rumor is that the Secretary of the Army is out after Hegseth's job. And Scott Bassett is, almost punched Bill Pulte from the housing administration. So these internal fights are going on. Patel threw Kristi Noem under the bus regarding the terrorism suspect, the Afghan who shot people up, who was granted asylum by the Trump administration, by Kristi Noem's department. So they're all turning on each other. Trump never likes to look like he's being forced to fire anybody, but I think somewhere between the Christmas holidays, 3 or 4 or 5 people are going to be reassigned to different jobs, and Hegseth would probably be on the top of the list for reassignment.
Wow. You think it'll happen, huh?
I think so. I think all it needs to happen for Trump is for him to realize that these people are squandering his own political capital, and he doesn't tolerate that very long. And they are squandering his political capital.
I have a quick question. It's sort of a side question, but it kind of applies to this whole thing. Whatever happened to Dan Bongino?
He actually was at a press conference this week. He's still the deputy director of the FBI. He was on the announcement for the guy, Brian Cole, who was arrested for planting the pipe bombs. Now, of course, Bongino had said that this was all part of an elaborate Democratic plot when he was a podcaster. Right. He said today, well, I was being paid for my opinions. And so I shared them. Now I'm getting paid to tell the truth. And that literally was his answer.
Right.
And here, by the way, as you brought that up, Mike, here's an interesting point. Brian Cole was apparently motivated, according to his statements that have been made, that he thought the 2020 election had, in fact, been stolen from President Trump. And he, just like the January 6th demonstrators, was there to make the point that it was a fraudulent election. Well, the pardon for the January 6th insurgents was a blanket pardon. It didn't name everybody individually. It just named everybody who was there to demonstrate.
Oh, boy.
It could very well be that Brian Cole, the guy who planted the pipe bombs, will make a claim of presidential pardon.
Wow. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That's something else. Yeah, that just goes to show you that there are consequences for things like Trump has done.
Well, there are. And, we're bombing boats off the coast of Venezuela, which is not a real big producer of fentanyl. And, of course, those boats can't get to the United States. It's 1,000 miles. They'd have to stop to refuel something like 20 times. But we pardoned the guy who was convicted in a court of bringing in 400 tons of cocaine.
Yeah, what is that about?
The pardon policy, along with our drug interdiction policy, is now completely incoherent.
Wow. And I heard Trump try to justify that pardon, and it didn't hold water with me, and I hope it doesn't hold water with anybody else because it was as flimsy as it could possibly be.
Well, that's right. And his people can't even get together and figure out a good story to lie about it. And that's, part of the ongoing problem. And I think most people look at that and sit there and go, why are we putting our military in play to blow up little boats in Venezuela or off the coast of Venezuela when we've got this guy who turned his country into a narco state and we're letting him go?
More things going on in the East Wing of the White House, right?
Well, there are. He hired a new architect. The other architect refused to build a building big enough for him. So he has hired a new architect to try and find a room big enough for his own satisfaction. And the East Wing now has become a metaphor for how out of touch Trump is with the cost of inflation and the cost of living of ordinary Americans. His approval he had his own sort of Mendoza line at 43%. He's now breached that. His approval has fallen to 36%. It's lower on the economy. It's reported this week that we lost 58,000 factory jobs since Liberation Day. So the American people are not feeling economically sound, and the East Wing renovation has become a metaphor for him being out of touch. And we'll see what the new architect comes up with.
Anything else we need to talk about before we dive into the Christmas holidays?
Well, we have to go back and look at our girlfriend, Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she announced she's going to up and resign from Congress. When we last talked, Mike, we made an over-under bet on the discharge petition saying 100 Republicans would vote for it. In fact, 200, all but one Republican voted for it, and a unanimous United States Senate voted for it, and it was signed the same day by Trump. So they're now working on getting the files out. They'll have to get them out. I believe it'll come out in multiple pieces. But the Epstein files are on their way, one way or the other.
Did that vote surprise you?
Yeah, well, after Trump threw in the towel and said, okay, you guys vote for it, after saying that anybody who voted for it was a squish and will be thrown out of the party, and did the about face, he gave the Republicans cover. I think there would have been 100 votes had he not even done that. But since he did it, everybody was going to vote for it because everybody knew that if they voted the wrong way, everybody except one guy from Louisiana, it would be a bad vote on their record.
Okay, and Nancy Mace is thinking about quitting too, right?
What the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing did, number one, it liberated Marjorie. I believe she's going to get a media gig someplace. And Nancy, who is running for governor, sort of picked up on it too because she wants to sort of, trail in the limelight there. And apparently there is a significant amount of incumbent Republicans, particularly senior people, committee chairmen, people who are very frustrated with how the Congress has advocated its responsibility and given everything over to the executive branch. People who are not getting grant announcements made. I used to make those calls when I was in Washington. I would call a congressman's office and say, we're releasing $28 million for buses for your district, so congratulations, and let the congressman get out there and do the press release. Right. But apparently, the Trump administration doesn't even do that and doesn't do it for the Republicans. Committee chairs are being, their jurisdiction is being trampled on, and they're getting very frustrated about it. And being in Congress and being on, out of the city for the past 50-some days before this vote made them seem irrelevant. And all I heard from was angry constituents. And so they go, well, I don't need to do this. I can do something else with my life and career. So there may be a lot more who bail. Pressure is building on Johnson. There are now multiple discharge petitions on a variety of topics that are percolating in Congress. The Republican drop-off in the election this November among Hispanics, blacks, men, and young people, that part of the coalition collapsed on it. So elected office holders can read the polls and see that they are in big trouble. It's a MAGA crack-up. Cruz and Paul and McConnell are all moving in different directions. There's divisions on health care and budget issues. The Texas redistricting map apparently was approved, so that balances off California. But Virginia, the Virginia State Senate today passed a bill that could conceivably eliminate 4 or 5 or 6 or more Republican seats in Virginia. So it's a long, difficult slug for a Republican incumbent, and a lot of people are saying, I don't really need to do this.
And we're in December. I would imagine in January, the midterm rush will begin, right? And as we've talked about on this show numerous times, and we have to remind people that the ruling party always has a problem in the midterms. And it seems like the Republicans are just stacking more problems onto that existing problem in the upcoming midterm elections.
That's absolutely right. If there was any lesson at all from Joe Biden, it was, don't pretend that the economy is good if people don't perceive it to be good. And Trump is now doing that in spades. He's saying this whole affordability thing is a hoax. The numbers are not backing him up. The employment numbers are not backing him up. Inflation is bad. So as long as he's going to try and pursue that, people are going to say you're out of touch, and Republicans are going to get punished for it at the polls. And it's not just January. I mean, filing opens in Texas tomorrow. So people are having to make decisions about running for office. And we've already seen a lot of Republicans who are moving on to different offices or not running again. And I think you're right, Mike. We're going to see even more.
Yeah. And the Republicans that are leaving, a lot of them are probably in safe positions, but are just fed up with it. And they will probably, in a lot of cases, be replaced by a Republican, right?
Well, most cases, if you have a safe district. But what we've saw with the numbers coming out of Tennessee is that what is a safe district has been sort of redefined. Yeah. So you could see a lot of challenges. And also, when you have an open seat, if you have an incumbent not running, that really provides a better opportunity for a challenger to come in and win against an unknown candidate for that district.
An incumbent always has a little bit of an advantage, no matter which party, right?
Generally speaking, yes.
Yeah.
And that will be taken away from the Republicans. And it's only a very small change that needs to happen. So a lot in flux, but Republicans have got to find a way to talk about affordability, to create some distance with Trump. And what Marjorie Taylor Greene showed them is that you can, in fact, do that. I mean, he may have, in fact, had her look at the numbers and say, I can't get reelected if I have a Trump-backed opponent in the primary. So I'm going to move on, and did it in a way that made her look pretty good. But the fact of it is that other Republicans are looking at that and saying, well, if she can stand up to him, so can I. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
Well, it looks like we're going to have to stay on the air with this program.
Absolutely.
There's just too much to talk about. This was a podcast that was supposed to end at the end of the last presidential election. And here we are, heading into the midterm. And it looks like there's going to be a lot of things to talk about.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
All right. Well, let's take a break. Hopefully we can make it through the holidays without another show, but we will have another show if things happen. And the way things go, things probably will happen. So stay close to your podcast, subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends about it, share it, and we'll be back again with the next edition of Red versus Blue very soon.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.